Hi there, my name's Adrian. Welcome to ALTERKNIT. I guess in this first video, I wanted to start off with what I think is the obvious question, and why add another knitting channel to YouTube? If you've ever searched for knitting channels, there's a plethora of great ones out there, including tutorial channels, vlogs, podcasts. The list is pretty much endless if you type in the word knit. So I guess I asked myself, why do I think YouTube has a space for me? And I think it's not because of what's out there, it's because of what might not be out there so much. It kind of started when I was looking to buy a yarn online that was really expensive but looked amazing. And I thought, I've never seen this in real life. I've never touched this. I've never felt it. I've never worked with it before. Am I really willing to spend a lot of cash on this? I think I'll need some reviews. And I did find a couple of reviews online, but apart from petting the yarn and holding it up to faces and saying, it's so squishy, I couldn't really find any more information than that. And that's, I guess, when the seed of this channel started to sprout and grow. And I thought, you know, maybe I could put some reviews out there that cover some of the things that I want to know when I see a review. And that spread to tutorials. There are excellent tutorials out there. Very Pink Knits, one of the first channels that I ever watched when I was learning to knit. New Stitch a Day as well. There's a huge list. What I find if I have a new pattern is I come across a stitch that I've kind of forgotten how to do because it was a while ago. Maybe I'll use slip slip knit for example, and I think, oh, I need to double check what that means. And so I want a quick tutorial that demonstrates it so that I can get into the knitting. Quite often you can find a 5-minute tutorial, bit of talking, it'll be the beginning here, bit of talking at the beginning, then we get into the tutorial and it takes a little while. And I thought, you know, that's great if I've never done a slip slip knit before and I want to know all about it and what it does and where it's useful. What I don't see often, and correct me if I'm wrong and if it's out there and you've seen it, I don't generally see channels where there is the quick truncated version of the tutorial and then a longer version with more explanation. And that's what I love to do on this channel, the quick knit and the unpick session. And those will be something that I upload in the future. I also want to do some great reviews, as I mentioned before, not just for yarns, but for needles, notions, and even patterns. And I would love your suggestions as well. If you're an enormous nerd like me and you love to know way too much information about the things you're passionate about, then you'll love the TMI portion of this channel, where I kind of get a little bit more in depth into the academic side of things. I do need to preface all of this, well, I should have prefaced all of this by saying I'm not an expert knitter by any means. I would call myself an intermediate beginner. I've been knitting for about 3 or 4 years only, but I do have a passion of teaching and explaining things, for better or worse, and that's what this channel is all about, is to try and get people interested in the craft of knitting, or to expand their knowledge if they're already hooked like a lot of us are. So a little bit about me. I am, as I said, an intermediate beginner knitter, knitting for about 3 or 4 years. It just happened on a whim one day, as things often do with me. I was watching TV and there was a commercial for a company in Australia called Country Road, and you Australians will know all about Country Road and its aesthetic. And I saw these beautiful throw rugs, and they were beautiful, but the price tag associated with them was pretty enormous. And I turned to my partner and I said, you know, I could make this for way cheaper. Any experienced knitter knows that there's not really such a thing as creating a blanket or a throw rug cheaply, but I was pretty green at the time and didn't realize. But from that point, you know, the idea had sunk into my head, and I obsessed, and I read and I watched YouTube and I looked at tutorials, and I became more and more convinced that I wanted to learn how to knit. And so my partner one day when I came home from work had purchased yarn and needles for us to try out. The yarn was a really good selection. It was a Cleckheaton merino wool, beautiful colours, natural colours. But the needles, oh, the needles. I'll show you in a video one day these horrible plastic cheap needles that you could get from a dollar store. they were awful, but it was enough. It's all we needed. We needed yarn and needles, and we were set. Starting knitting was exciting for me, and it was frustrating as well. We made all of the beginner mistakes, dropping stitches. We were increasing our work. We weren't decreasing really, increasing our work without knowing exactly how or why. The knitting was so tight. It was so difficult to get the needles in. It was just really unpleasant. And so I'm definitely going to upload some videos about beginner troubleshooting. I am a fairly isolated knitter in my area. There's no knitting groups that I know of, certainly not for men, or that I imagine would be male friendly. There are no yarn stores for 2 hours. There is local craft stores like Lincraft and Spotlight that do sell knitting supplies. I imagine they'd be quite similar to Michael's if you're in the US. I'm not sure on the UK equivalent, but quite often they don't carry specialty yarns, and they are quite expensive for what the products are, for the products that they carry. So a lot of my experience with knitting is online. Communicating with people is online. Purchasing equipment is online, and it makes it kind of tricky sometimes. So that's essentially why I wanted to create this channel and connect with you guys. So please be active in the comments. Don't be afraid to let me know if something's wrong. I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it already has been. Don't be afraid to let me know what you want to see me talk about, or anything you want me to review, and we'll see if we can make that happen. So please click like and subscribe to this channel, and stay tuned for more videos. Bye.